There's a strange thing that happens when you stop trying to prove your worth to someone. The moment you step back, she suddenly steps forward. At first, it doesn't make sense. You think distance will kill the connection, that silence will erase what you built. But in human psychology, distance doesn't destroy desire, it defines it. You see, what repels people isn't always your flaws. It's your availability. When you stop orbiting her world, when you stop feeding her ego with constant attention, something begins to shift inside her. She starts to wonder where you went. She starts to replay the last moment she saw you calm, detached, unbothered. And for the first time, she begins to miss the peace that used to surround you. This isn't manipulation, it's a law of emotional equilibrium. When one side pulls too far, the other naturally pushes away. But when you reclaim your center, the world adjusts to your gravity. The story of the man who couldn't let go. There was once a man I knew, decent, loyal and kind to a fault. The sort of man who still believed that love, if pure enough, could hold two people together through anything. He wasn't loud or dramatic. He was the quiet type who showed love through consistency. The kind of man who remembered her coffee order, who texted good morning without fail, who listened even when the conversation was half-hearted. But one day, he noticed something subtle. Her tone began to shift. The warmth faded. Messages became shorter, calls less frequent. She was still there, but only in body. Her mind was somewhere else. He felt it, the distance growing, and because he loved her, he did what felt natural. He tried harder. He sent longer messages. He planned surprises. He poured himself into fixing what he didn't understand was already gone. Each attempt, each message, each plea came from sincerity, but also from fear. Fear of losing her, fear of silence, fear of being forgotten. And slowly, without realizing it, he began to shrink. Every unanswered text made him question himself. Every delayed reply became a small wound. His love started to sound like begging, and his loyalty began to feel like desperation. When she finally pulled away completely, he broke. Not in anger, but in exhaustion. He stopped calling, not because he learned some clever strategy, but because his heart was simply tired. And that's when something strange happened. She came back, slowly at first, a message, a memory, a phone call, just to check in. It wasn't that she suddenly fell in love again. It was that for the first time, she could feel what it meant to lose his presence. His silence spoke the truth that his words never could. He was not hers to keep by force. He was hers only by choice. That was the moment I realized something profound. Distance doesn't kill attraction, it reveals its depth. When you're no longer chasing, you give her space to see what you actually meant. Because love that's constantly present becomes invisible. But love that disappears, even for a while, leaves an echo that no one else can replace. Lesson 1. Distance triggers curiosity. When a woman starts to pull away, most men panic. It's subtle at first. Slower replies, shorter texts, colder tones. You feel it before you can explain it. Something invisible shifts, and your instincts scream to fix it. You start texting more, calling more, asking if something's wrong. You want clarity. You want reassurance. You want to bring back the warmth that used to feel effortless. But what you're really doing in those moments isn't fixing anything. You're killing her curiosity. You're taking away the uncertainty that attraction needs to survive. Curiosity is born in silence. It grows in the unknown. When she doesn't know where you are, what you're thinking, or how you feel, her mind fills in the blanks. And in that empty space, you become something more powerful than constant. You become unpredictable. Marcus Aurelius once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He was talking about fear, but the same truth applies to desire. Because imagination is the most potent fuel for emotion. When she stops hearing from you, she begins to imagine you. Not as you are, but as she remembers you, idealizes you, and even questions you. She starts to replay conversations, to overanalyze your silence, to wonder if you've changed or if someone else now holds your attention. That uncertainty triggers something deep inside her. It's not comfort, it's tension. But tension is the soil in which attraction grows. Most men don't understand this. They think that attention keeps love alive, but in truth, overexposure dulls fascination. You cannot make someone curious by constantly explaining yourself. You cannot make someone miss you when you never leave their mind long enough for silence to speak. When you stop reaching out, when you stop trying to fix what isn't yours to fix, you create a void. And that void whispers louder than words. She starts wondering, is he done with me? Did I push him too far? Why do I feel his absence more than I enjoyed his presence? That's the paradox of distance. It replaces noise with intrigue. It allows her to feel what it's like when your energy is gone. Every text you don't send gives her mind a new question to answer. Every day you stay calm and silent adds weight to your mystery. Because the truth is this, attraction doesn't live in attention. It lives in curiosity. And curiosity, once awakened, becomes the spark that draws her back to your silence. Lesson 2. Distance forces reflection. Most men never give a woman the chance to truly miss them. The moment they feel her pulling away, they panic, and they fill the silence with noise, words, explanations, confessions, reassurance. They think connection is maintained through constant presence, but it isn't. Presence comforts the mind, absence awakens the heart. Reflection doesn't grow in noise, it grows in quiet. When you step away, you create a vacuum, and nature, as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, hates a vacuum. That space you leave behind doesn't stay empty. It fills with thought, with memory, with emotion she thought she'd already moved past. At first, she tells herself she's fine, that she doesn't need to think about you, but slowly, her mind begins to wander. She remembers the way you looked at her when she laughed without realizing it. The way you listened, not to fix her, but to understand her. The steadiness you carried when everything around her felt chaotic. Women are emotional rememberers. They don't remember timelines, they remember feelings. Each memory in her mind is tied to a heartbeat, to a mood, to the energy of a moment. And when the constant noise of your attention disappears, those buried emotions rise again, not as logic, but as longing. She starts asking herself quiet, dangerous questions. Did I misjudge him? Was I too harsh? Why do I feel this strange emptiness? That's not weakness, it's reflection. And reflection takes time. It's not a spark, it's a slow fire. The more time you give it, the deeper it burns. That's why you don't check your phone every 2 minutes. You don't post cryptic quotes or accidental stories just to be seen. You don't try to prove how fine you are, because that's still chasing, only in disguise. You let silence do what you cannot make her feel. And while she's reflecting, you rebuild, you evolve. You grow into a version of yourself that doesn't need validation to feel valuable. Because when she does think of you, and she will, the man she remembers must not be the man she left. He must be sharper, calmer, more grounded, more sovereign. Only then does her reflection turn into realization. Only then does longing become regret. Because she no longer misses what you gave her. She misses the peace that only your presence once provided. And that realization doesn't come through your words. It's born in the quiet echo of your absence. Lesson 3. Distance challenges her ego. When you walk away, you're not just creating silence, you're shaking the foundation of her ego. Because for many women, especially those used to being admired, attention becomes a mirror. It reflects their value back to them. The more you chase, the more they feel desired. The more you wait, the more they feel in control. And when that attention suddenly stops, the mirror cracks. She begins to feel something she hasn't felt in a long time: uncertainty. At first, it confuses her. She wonders if you're okay, if something happened, if you're just busy. Then it irritates her. She starts to feel frustrated, even offended by your silence. And then finally, it begins to scare her. Because now, for the first time, she's not sure if she still holds your attention. She can no longer predict your reaction, no longer rely on your comfort. She thought she could come and go, that you'd always be there, waiting, orbiting around her like gravity. But now that gravity is gone, and with it, her sense of control, that's when ego pain sets in. And ego pain is one of the most powerful motivators in human psychology. When her pride feels threatened, she acts, not because she suddenly fell back in love, but because she needs to prove something to herself, that she still matters, that she still has influence over you. You'll notice it in small ways. A new photo posted that feels suspiciously targeted. A comment on your story after weeks of silence. A text that says, "Hey, how have you been?" Short, casual, seemingly innocent. But it's not about checking in, it's about checking control. This is the moment your discipline is tested. Because the second you respond too quickly, too warmly, you restore the illusion she lost. You give her ego what it wanted. Confirmation that you're still within reach. But if you stay calm, grounded and unmoved, if you respond with balance instead of emotion, you disrupt that cycle. You turn the ego game into emotional awakening. Because now her attempts to regain control don't work, her tactics fail. And in that failure, her emotions begin to surface. Pride gives way to genuine feeling. Curiosity becomes longing. Longing becomes desire. Distance exposes her ego, but your composure transforms that exposure into attraction. The more you stay centered, the more she starts to wonder if she lost something rare. Not just your attention, but your respect. And that realization cuts deeper than silence ever could. Lesson 4. Distance highlights your value. Absence has a strange way of magnifying value. It's one of the oldest truths in human nature. We rarely appreciate what is constant, but we always crave what is lost. We mourn not just people, but the feeling of their presence, the quiet stability they once brought into our lives. When you're always available, she gets used to your energy. Your consistency, once comforting, becomes background noise. It's predictable, familiar, and eventually invisible. She stops noticing the things that once set you apart because they're always there. The same way we forget the importance of sunlight until a storm takes it away. But when you disappear, not out of anger, not to play games, but to rebuild, something changes. The absence you create becomes a mirror, showing her what she's been overlooking. It forces contrast. Other men may step in. Some might be charming, spontaneous, or even more exciting in the moment, but they won't feel like you, because presence is not about being physically near someone. It's about the energy you bring when you are. Masculine energy that is grounded, composed, and self-contained lingers far longer than noise ever could. When a man learns to pull his energy inward, to channel it into purpose instead of pursuit, his absence begins to speak louder than any message he could send. His silence becomes heavy, magnetic. It reminds her of what stability feels like, not what it sounds like. You see, a woman might forget the details, your words, your plans, your jokes, but she never forgets how she felt in your presence. When you leave, that emotional memory remains. It begins to echo in moments she doesn't expect. Late at night, in the car, in the middle of a conversation with someone else who doesn't quite measure up. And if during that silence you've grown, if you've hit the gym, sharpened your mind, disciplined your habits, and built your life around purpose instead of attention, she will feel that shift before she even sees it. Every improvement you make adds weight to her thoughts. He looks better, he seems calmer, he doesn't need me anymore. And that's the moment when desire returns, not out of nostalgia, but out of respect. Because a man who doesn't need validation becomes a man every woman respects, whether she admits it or not. Remember this, value unspoken is louder than value performed. You don't have to announce your evolution. You don't have to prove your worth through words or posts. You simply embody it. When she finally crosses paths with you again, or even just sees a glimpse of your life from afar, she won't feel pity. She'll feel something far more powerful and far rarer in today's world, admiration. Because true value isn't loud. It's quiet. It's consistent. And it's undeniable once it's gone. Lesson 5. Distance makes her feel replaceable. There comes a moment, subtle but unmistakable, when silence begins to unsettle her. At first, she interprets it as stubbornness, or maybe indifference. But slowly, a deeper realization begins to surface, one that stings far more than rejection. The thought that she might actually be replaceable. That idea cuts sharper than heartbreak, because it's not about losing love, it's about losing importance. For weeks, maybe months, she believed she was the center of your emotional world. Every text, every compliment, every reassurance told her that she mattered, that she was the gravitational pull keeping you orbiting around her. And then, without warning, it stops. No calls, no paragraphs, no little signs of attention. The silence stretches. Days turn into weeks. She checks your page. You're living. You look calm, centered, even happy. You haven't fallen apart. And in that stillness, something inside her cracks. Because now she understands the truth. You were never dependent. You were choosing her. And choices can change. That's what shakes her most. She starts asking herself quiet, unsettling questions. Is he seeing someone new? Did I push him too far? Was I just one chapter in his story? These aren't just jealous thoughts, they're existential fears. Because what every woman fears more than losing a man is being replaced by his peace. You see, when she realizes that your life didn't collapse without her, she feels something unfamiliar, insignificance, and that emotion terrifies her. It forces her to question everything she assumed about your connection. You don't have to prove that you've moved on. You don't have to flaunt new people or post photos designed to provoke a reaction. That's manipulation, not mastery. True strength doesn't perform, it radiates. You simply have to live in a way that makes your silence undeniable, calm, composed, purposeful. When she sees that, when she senses that you're at peace, that you've found balance without needing her validation, Her imagination does the rest. She begins to picture you with someone else, not out of evidence but fear. She replays the last time she saw you, wondering if you already knew you were leaving. She feels the space you used to fill, and for the first time, she understands what you brought to her life: structure, energy, presence. And that realization hurts more than any argument or goodbye ever could. Because she now sees you not as the man who chased her, but as the man who could walk away and rebuild. That's when the messages start again. The subtle check-ins, the "Hey, how have you been?" texts, the accidental likes on your old photos. Not because she's suddenly in love again, but because she can't stand the idea of being forgotten. You never needed to replace her. You only needed to remind her, through peace, not pride, that she was never your only option. Lesson 6. Distance resets the power dynamic. Every relationship, whether we acknowledge it or not, runs on an invisible balance, a silent rhythm of who leads and who follows, who gives and who reacts. It's not about dominance or submission, it's about emotional polarity. The moment one side gives too much while the other withdraws, that rhythm breaks. When she starts pulling away, it usually means the balance has tilted too far in her favor. You've become the one chasing. She's become the one being chased. And the moment that happens, attraction begins to fade, not because she's cruel, but because nature resists imbalance. Desire cannot breathe when one person stops being a mystery. You see, every woman wants to feel your presence, not your pressure. And every man, whether he knows it or not, needs to protect his sense of direction more than his need for affection. When you step back, truly step back, something fundamental shifts. You stop trying to manage her emotions and start managing your own. You stop reacting to her mood swings, her cold replies, her confusing behavior, and suddenly, she's the one reacting to your absence. That's when respect begins to return. Not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it, first toward yourself. The paradox of power is that it can never be seized, it must be earned through stillness. Real strength is not loud or reactive. It doesn't need validation. It's calm, grounded, and unshakable. The man who can stay still when others panic, that's the man everyone eventually follows. When she feels that kind of energy, the steady, self-assured energy of a man who no longer needs her response to feel valuable, her instincts begin to shift. The walls she built start to soften. The tone in her messages changes. She starts listening again, maybe even chasing. Not because she fears losing you, but because she feels your gravity again, the natural pull of masculine composure. She realizes that you are not swayed by emotion or approval, that your sense of peace doesn't depend on her participation, and that realization makes her lean in. This is the unspoken truth most men miss. Power in relationships is not about control, it's about emotional leverage. It's about who remains calm when the other person needs reaction. When you stop explaining yourself, stop over-justifying your silence, stop trying to prove your worth, the frame shifts. The emotional landscape changes. You're no longer orbiting around her approval. You've become your own center of gravity. And that shift doesn't need to be announced. You don't need to tell her, "I'm different now." She'll feel it. It's in the pauses between your words. It's in the slower, steadier tone of your voice. It's in your silence that no longer seeks validation, but commands attention. When she reaches back out, and she will, don't rush to meet her halfway. Let her walk into your frame. Let her earn the space she once assumed was hers. That's not cruelty, that's equilibrium. Because love without balance turns into dependence, and affection without respect collapses into resentment. By stepping back, you didn't abandon her. You restored the balance. You reminded her that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And once that truth settles, she'll start moving differently. She'll respect your time, your silence, your leadership. Not because you forced her to, but because she feels that the power dynamic has been reset. In the end, that's what distance really is. Not punishment, but alignment. Not rejection, but restoration. And when you master that, when you can walk away with calm certainty, you'll never have to fight for respect again. You'll already own it. The reflection: what distance teaches you about power. By now, you might begin to understand something deeper, something most men never realize until it's too late. This was never really about her, it was always about you. The point of distance isn't to manipulate her emotions or to test her loyalty. It's to reveal the truth about yourself, who you are when she's gone. Because when the noise of affection fades, what's left behind is your foundation. And that foundation will tell you everything, whether your peace was real or borrowed, whether your confidence was self-built or dependent on her validation. Distance is the mirror every man faces at least once in his life. It doesn't show you her, it shows you you. It exposes how much of your identity was tied to being wanted, how much of your energy went into maintaining someone else's approval. It forces you to confront the uncomfortable question: who am I when there's no one watching? And if you have the courage to face that question without flinching, you come out transformed. You begin to see that peace doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. You stop chasing people who confuse attention with affection. You stop explaining your worth to those who already decided to misunderstand it. You stop fearing loss because you finally realize nothing real can ever be lost. The irony is, when you detach from needing to be needed, you become more magnetic. Because self-possession, quiet, steady, unshakable, is the rarest kind of strength. And people feel it. They might not be able to name it, but they recognize it in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you no longer seek permission to exist. So when she comes back, if she does, it's not a victory. It's confirmation. Confirmation that your strength was never in how hard you could chase or how much you could give, but in how firmly you could stand alone. Distance isn't punishment, it's purification. It strips away illusion until all that's left is truth. And once you've met yourself in that silence, you'll understand something most men never do, that walking away isn't weakness. It's mastery. Closing, the calm that commands. So remember this: you don't chase respect, you command it through composure. You don't prove your worth, you reveal it through distance. You don't beg for love, you become peace itself and let others rise to meet that calm. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In the same way, the best response to rejection isn't bitterness, it's balance. Not reaction, but reflection. Because when a man learns to stay still in the face of loss, he becomes magnetic in the face of life. His calm becomes power. His restraint becomes gravity. The world feels it. He no longer begs. He no longer explains himself. He no longer collapses under the weight of emotion. He simply walks, steady, silent, and self-possessed. Each step says more than 1,000 words ever could. And when she finally looks back, and she will, what she sees will stop her cold. Not the man who pleaded, not the man who chased, not the man who waited for validation, but the man who rebuilt himself from stillness. The man who walks not to prove anything, but because he knows exactly where he's going. She won't recognize him. And that's the point. Because he's no longer the man she left, he's the man she thought she could never lose, and now, finally, can't forget.